What's going on, guys? Today I'll be giving you a full tour and cost breakdown of my pole barn house and garage. Hey guys, so before I start the detailed video, I just wanted to put out there that I bought this land when I was 22 and I designed and got the house built at 24. So by no means was I an expert on designing or building a house. This was my first house after moving out of my parents. So I never even bought a house before, and I jumped into designing and getting a house constructed from scratch. I wouldn't suggest it for anyone if you don't have a lot of patience and are willing to learn a lot. It was definitely stressful, but totally worth it in the end. And I've already had a lot of questions on the house build video as to why I didn't do certain things a certain way. And the answer is pretty much always cost. At 23 and 24 years old, I obviously didn't have a huge budget for everything that I wanted to include. I looked at all the options and I had to weigh the pros and cons of exactly what I wanted to get in the house. My main concern was to get the overall footprint big enough and then build from there. I have future plans to make it exactly what I want. It's not perfect right now, still a work in progress, but I'm really happy with how it turned out and where it's at today. So we'll be starting the tour outside. I wanted to show you guys exactly what I was working with. So when I bought this land, it was all completely wooded, kind of as you see here. And it's also, there's a good slope to it. It's kind of hard to see maybe in video, but there's a good slope to the whole lot. So the very first thing that needed to happen was to clear out trees. So I actually got loggers in here and they cleared about 1.5 to 2 acres, kind of in the middle of my lot. So once they were done, I did have to do a lot of cleanup. They only took the biggest logs, but that was kind of okay because I got to save a lot of the wood for firewood. As you'll see when we get inside, I do have a wood stove that I use to heat the living portion of the house. And there's kind of a little wood shed I made to keep some of my firewood dry. Once we got the trees cleared out, we started excavation. And the biggest part of that was flattening the site for the house. So they actually did that by just pulling dirt from the top side and pulling it down to the low side and giving me this nice flat pad for where the house sits. Some of the other big parts of excavation were burying my electric. So the electric actually comes from a road that's like way up there and it's buried underground like through here and then goes to that corner of the garage. Also, for my septic system, I needed to use a sand mound type system. So with that, I have tanks that actually sit right here. You can see the caps in my front yard. So the septic goes into those tanks and then the liquids are actually pumped way up the hill, way up there, and that's where the actual sand mound system is. So it's actually kind of nice because it's on a hill and it's in the woods, so you don't really see it. Sometimes if you're in like a neighborhood that has a sand mound, you can see the big hump in the yard and it doesn't look that great. The other excavation task that was done was rainwater retention. So if you see, my gutters actually go straight into the ground, and then they run over here to a big basin that's underground that has, it's basically just filled with rock. I don't know if there's a couple different grades of rock in there. The idea behind that is to disperse the rainwater back into the ground. I thought it was a little excessive, but it's what was required by code. So now as for the actual structure of the house and garage, it is a 50 by 70 structure. 50 by 48 of that is the garage and 50 by 22 is the living space. So this end we're looking at here is obviously the shop. I've got the garage door. I've got a regular door there beside it. And then on the front of the garage, I did these bigger windows. I believe they are 6-foot windows. So as opposed to a normal window, which is I think more like 3 foot. So I did these larger windows on the front to let more light in. And also having a normal size window on this large wall, this is a 14-foot wall, looks really small. So this kind of gives a little bit of a different look to it. So as you get down here, this is kind of my front door to my house. I don't really use it as that because I just go in through the garage. But this is the front door. I have a couple windows, a light. This is my chimney for my wood stove. So here we're on like the low side of my living space side of the house. So on this end, I tried to put a bunch of windows and 2 sliding doors to let a lot of light in. And it actually works out well in the winter. The sun is on this side of the house, so it heats up the house portion really well. So now I'm on the higher side of the living portion end of the house. So as you can see here, I did a different roof pitch for the living section. And I did that just to kind of break up the structure so it didn't look like one huge warehouse. And also that roof pitch gives me a second floor in the living space. And I did design it in such a way that the roof pitches actually line up perfectly. You can see the pitch from the garage portion and the pitch on the living space section line up. So with these two sliders on this end, I definitely plan to do some type of a deck or porch out here and maybe actually put a little roof over it. That should definitely improve the look, and it'd be nice to have a little bit of outdoor living space as well. So then on the back side of the house here, I've got a couple windows that are in the living space, and then I've also got a door that goes into the garage. I've got a shower in place here, but I did not yet build any walls for it. And here I have normal size windows on the back of the house. I did place them, I think, a little bit higher because I knew I was going to be putting a workbench inside there. So for now, I just have stone all the way around the house. I think it's called River Rock. I definitely plan to eventually have probably some more landscaping, but this works well for now. It keeps the grass away from the house, and it just gives you a pretty clean look. And here we are in the garage portion of the house. The garage is 50 by 48 with 14-foot ceilings. And I did 6-inch concrete throughout the whole garage because at the time of planning, I really didn't know where I was going to put lifts and things. And normally with lifts, you do need at least 6 inches of concrete. So I just decided to do 6-inch in the entire garage. So as for lighting, initially I just had the builders put in these 3-foot LED lights, and they initially had 9 total, which actually lights this up really nicely. I did add, as you can see, a few more in certain areas, like in my work area here and my workout area in the back there. But yeah, the LEDs do really a great job of lighting up the space. It definitely helps when you have white walls. I have, like, my garage door is white and I painted the big back wall white. So I never have an issue with having enough light in here. I also made sure that I had plenty of outlets in the garage. You can probably see I do have outlets placed on the ceiling. There's outlets that are for just the lights that are on a switch, and then there's other outlets that are just there. There in the back, I have a pull down extension cord. I love having that. I'll probably add more in the future. I also did make sure I have a 200 amp service here to make sure I definitely had enough power for everything I'm gonna run, like a lift and welders and maybe a compressor and stuff like that. So now onto the more detailed aspects of the garage. So the garage door, I actually ended up deciding to go with a single door, but it's pretty big. It's 18 foot wide and 12 foot high. So 18 foot wide is enough to fit 2 cars easily beside each other through it. And I decided to go straight in the middle. I was back and forth on having 2 garage doors. There's different theories on it, but this has worked out well for me, having just one large one in the middle. Also, I made sure I put a drain in the garage floor right here. So the concrete slopes down a little bit, going towards that drain just in that area. So when it's snowy or rainy, I park a vehicle right there. It kind of can drip off and go into the drain more or less. And it keeps the rest of the garage a little bit cleaner. I could also wash a car in here. I've only done that probably a couple times, but if it is in the middle of winter and it's crappy outside, you could wash a car in here. So now I'll just kind of take you around the garage and show you the different aspects. I did put in place a spigot inside, and there's also one outside right here. I do like having this one inside because I end up just leaving my pressure washer hooked up to that, and then I just bring the pressure washer over right here to wash cars outside. That way it's always hooked up, and then I can just wheel it right back inside, easy access. In this little area, I just have mowers and some rakes and stuff for outside landscaping type stuff. And then this wall and this general side is mostly storage. So, I have a lot of old car parts. I will probably need some more storage eventually, maybe build some more racks so I can more efficiently store things. So I've got some straps, and here's a bunch of wheels and tires. But as you can see, all around I do have outlets in place because, when I was designing, I didn't know exactly how I was going to lay it out. And it might change for sure in the future. So then here's where the Jeep sits for the time being. And this is the back wall. So on the other side of this wall is the living space portion. So right here is kind of my workout area. Pretty simple. I don't have everything you could ever want, but I have the essentials that are needed. I built this platform for deadlifting and a little platform under the rack there to keep everything nice and clean. So then going past the workout area, this is the door that actually goes into the living space section. And then after that, I do have a wash sink. I would definitely suggest having a wash sink in your garage. You know, if it's just for washing your really dirty hands or cleaning off parts, it's nice to have a sink in the garage as opposed to going inside into your house. There is a toilet sitting here. I always get comments on that. Why is there a toilet just sitting in your garage? The toilet is hooked up and usable. I haven't built any walls around it yet. I definitely plan to build some walls around that. I think I'll keep the walls just around the toilet so that the wash sink is still really easily accessible. And then past that is kind of just some more storage. That's like a paint cabinet, chemicals, cleaners, stuff like that. That door goes out to the backyard. And then kind of the most important part, this is the working area of the garage. Soon after building the place, I purchased a lift. It's something I've always wanted. I know how important it is when you're working on cars to have a lift. So this is the one I chose. So I picked this up myself actually, went to a dealer and put it on a trailer in pieces. So this is the Atlas PV9P. So it is just a 9,000 pound lift, but it is the more commercial grade lift compared to their normal 9,000 pound lift. You could tell this one is a lot meatier as far as if you look at the arms and just the structure in general. And it gives you a little bit more confidence, when you're under a car, especially if you're by yourself, that nothing's going to break. And this has performed very well for me. I've had no issues with it at all. Like I said, it came in pieces. Me and a friend did the install. It went pretty smoothly, took a couple days. And as far as location, like I said, when I designed the house, I really didn't know where the lift was going to go. So if you look, it's off to the side for sure, but when you come into that garage door, you can pretty easily turn and get straight into the lift area. I put it there, just in case if I ever wanted to put like another lift, it would probably go right here if I wanted to put another 2-post lift. And then also if I wanted to put like a 4-post lift, I'd probably put it like in the corner. That'd be more for storage. But no real complaints with the location that I chose. I kind of wanted it off to the side so it's not right in the middle. So I still have a lot of open area over here. But I also didn't want it too close to the side with my workbenches so that I could maneuver around it. So after about 2 years of having the lift here, I don't really have any complaints of the lift or the location of where I chose to place it. So as far as what I have as machinery and tools, like I said, I'm still on a budget. I'm still young. I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of money on things that I don't need. So, I have some pretty basic toolboxes. They work fine. Yeah, they're not a Snap-on toolbox, but they also were like $100, not $1,000. So I'm perfectly okay with having those. I have sander, saws. I do a lot of metal work. So I have, a metal chop saw. I have a grinder. I have a couple welders here. Something to think about if you're designing a garage. Definitely try to consider where your working areas are going to be and where you're going to place workbenches. So I made sure that on this entire wall, I had the outlets placed higher. So here you can see there's an outlet, and then there's a 4-pack outlet here. So they're higher so that, they're above the workbench area. I also made sure I have a couple 240 volt outlets. There's one right here for my welder. I also put one on the ceiling, which is right there, because I had an idea that I wanted the lift in this general area. So I put the outlet there, and then I wired up the lift, and then I could just plug it right in. Also, keeping with the theme of budget conscious, I built my workbenches. I definitely suggest doing this. If you go to buy workbenches, they're usually really expensive, and you probably don't need a lot of the things that they have. But a workbench like this probably cost me under $100 in materials. I usually use like a 2x3 construction for the top frame, and then 2x4s for like the legs. And if you want to make another shelf down here, I always use 3/4 inch plywood for the top surface, because that's pretty tough, and you don't have to worry about breaking. I can stand on this workbench and it doesn't give at all. And then this other workbench is actually 16 foot by about 3 foot, and you can see here we actually ended up cutting the plywood around the structure of the building so that it goes the whole way to the wall. And that's just kind of nice so that, you know, nothing can fall behind it. I put a couple shelves underneath, and these are actually built as 2 separate workbenches. You can split them in the middle. They're screwed together right now, but you can split them right there, and there would be 2 8-foot benches. And materials total for that whole thing was, I think, like $150. So like I said, I've got, you know, over 24 foot of workbench for around $250. So you can't really beat that if you're going to go try and buy a workbench or buy something super fancy that you don't really need. So then as we head back here, I have a little bit of material storage here in the corner. And then here are some of my lift accessories. These are just, you know, tall jacks. And this is an oil drain pan. I'd suggest having both of those if you do have a lift. So that's it for the garage portion. As it sits now, it is not insulated and it's not heated, which it does get a little cold in the winter months, but it's really not that bad if you have a heater. I have, you know, one of those propane torpedo heaters there. I would like to insulate it and heat it at some point down the line. I know insulation alone will do a lot for this, but like I said at the time, I didn't want to give up other things in order to get this insulated. I'd rather build, you know, a little bit bigger garage and then eventually insulate it, as opposed to building a smaller garage that might not be big enough, you know, down the line that would be insulated. So now before we head inside to the living portion, I wanted to mention this is a fire rated wall that separates the garage and the living space. As you can see, it actually goes the whole way up to the roof line, and that was required by code to have that fire rating between a garage space and a living space. So now we are in the living section of the house, and this portion is extremely simple and open. The living section is 50 by 22 and the ceilings are 9.5 feet. So the only section of the living space that I divided off was the bedroom. So you can see here I have a drywall wall and a door that goes into my bedroom. So in here it's just my bedroom. As you can see, I have the slider there, it lets in a lot of light. I got a window. I have my bathroom and I have a small walk-in closet here. So it's pretty basic. It's exactly what I need. I have a little bit of an office space with my computer and stuff there. But yeah, it's everything I need for now. I think the bedroom area is about 15 by 22. So then the remainder of this space is completely open. So over here, I have some more workbenches. This is where I have my vinyl cutter. So this is where I make like decals or, you know, vinyl for shirts and stuff like that. Or just working on anything that I can work on inside out of the cold. Here under the stairs, I actually have my water heater and my pressure tank. And I chose to do that because then I can keep it out of the garage. I don't have to worry about anything freezing. And also going under the stairs is a good use of space. I plan to wall that off where I have this shelf right now and just do a wall here and probably put a little door for access to the water heater. Haven't done that yet, but I plan to do that, and that's why you can see I stained this section of the steps underneath because I plan to leave that exposed. So then I have a little bit of a kitchen table here, and this area is kind of like a living room. I have some sofas, and the most important part, the wood stove. The wood stove does heat the entire living section. I don't have to use any other type of heat. If I do go away, I do have the electric baseboards that you can see down there that I can turn on. Not the most efficient thing in the world, so the electric bill definitely goes up with those, but I rarely have to use them, so the wood stove does a really great job. Here I have a small TV, I have my wood storage, and me and a friend did do the whole kitchen build ourselves. The cabinets, I believe, were from Lowe's, off-the-shelf cabinets, not too expensive. The countertop is from IKEA. It is solid wood, so all we had to do was cut this area for the sink. That turned out pretty well. And then we just cut this one the length, and I actually still have 4 foot left of that countertop that I can build a table out of. They came in 8-foot sections. They were really a good deal. I think they were like $120 each. So happy with that. The kitchen build is not complete yet. I don't have any upper cabinets, and my microwave is sitting on top of my fridge still. So the microwave is going to be going right here, and that's why that outlet is there. I plan to be doing that soon, putting some upper cabinets in to really complete the kitchen build. Although up to this point, I haven't really run out of room. I don't really need that much space for things, so this kitchen setup has worked perfectly fine for me. And the entire living section is insulated by fiberglass roll insulation in the walls, the outer walls, and also the wall between the garage, which is this one. And then it has blown in cellulose in the ceiling, and it is actually very easy to regulate the temperature in here. It's nice in the winter. I can let sun in and it heats up the area nicely. And then in the summer I can close the shades and it keeps pretty cool. Having the concrete really regulates the temperature, so it's never that big of a deal to keep it comfortable in here. In the summer, for now, I do just use a window AC unit in my bedroom. Obviously you can see this is an extremely simple layout. I did create some plans for the future if I want. I could put a small bedroom in this area, and I would like to probably put a wall to the left of this door here, make that a little bit more of a mudroom area with my washer and dryer. And also here I have space for a bathroom. I can actually put a full bath in. Down here you can see this is a drain for a future toilet, and this is also a drain for a shower if I want. I could probably get away with just doing a half bath there, but if I want, I could have a separate full bath, you know, if I put a bedroom here so that you wouldn't have to go into this bedroom to use the other bathroom. And then over here are my stairs to the second floor. So the second floor is unfinished. I'm basically just using it as an attic space right now, but I do have a subfloor down up here so I can use it for storage. It was nice to be able to go up here and install my chimney for my wood stove, which is back in here. The eventual plan up here is to do a master bedroom suite. I do have the drains and the plumbing in place to be able to do that. I'd probably put a bathroom over in this corner, bedroom would be over here, and a walk-in closet over here. I do have this nice big window here that would be great for letting in some natural light into a bedroom. So that's the eventual plan up here, but for now, like I said, I'm just using it as some attic space. Next up, I'm going to address probably the biggest question that came from my house build video, which is cost. Everyone seems to want to know, how much does something like this cost to build? And to tell you the truth, the cost will depend on so many different things, but I'm going to do my best to try to give you guys a feel of what something like this costs based on what I paid and based on my research when I was going into building and doing everything necessary to get it designed and built and finished. First up will be the land price. And unfortunately, I can't give you really anything on land price because that's completely dependent on where you live. If you're curious, just go online and search for some lots, some land. And of course, size of the lot is gonna change the price quite a bit. You know, if you're like me and you are doing welding, grinding, dealing with loud cars, you probably want a bigger lot so you're not as close to your neighbors. So next up is the permits and planning process. For me, that was about $2,000 to $3,000. That's going to depend on location again, just to how much your specific township or state requires that you do up front. I had to do a lot of planning with erosion and sediment control, so I had to do a whole plan for that. You know, you have to do various drawings that my township needed to get approval for the building. Then moving on to the main structure of the house. So that includes all the framing, the concrete, the walls, the doors and windows. So for me, I have a few walls internal to the structure. You know, if you're building just a garage and you don't have any internal walls, that's going to cut down on that cost quite a bit. I had drywall inside. I had some finished living areas. I did cut some cost on doing a lot of the interior finishing, like, you know, staining trim. I did the kitchen build, as I said. Did all the painting inside, so that always helps a lot, and that's something that anyone can really do. So for me, that was about in the $100,000 to $120,000 range for the main structure of the building. Next up, electric. So getting the electric, I did have a 200 amp service put in and a lot of outlets, so if you don't go as crazy as me, it might be a little less than that, but $10,000 to $15,000 is about what I paid. Now for plumbing, well drilling, I have a pretty simple setup. I have a well in my front yard. You know, if you're somewhere that you can get public water, then you won't have the well cost, but you'll still have to have, you know, the plumbing inside. I didn't do anything too crazy, so it was on the lower end of that range, but the range I put is 12 to 18,000. Next, the septic system. So this has a huge range because it's really going to be dependent again on where you are. For my location here, there's a lot of rock in the ground, so I was not approved for a traditional septic system. So I needed to use a sand mound system, as I showed you outside. So I was actually at the upper end of that range, but you know, if you can get away with a more traditional system, it's going to be on the lower side of that range. And for excavation, it's going to depend again on your specific lot. I was dealing with a wooded lot that had a lot of slope, so I was again more on the upper limit of that range. You could be a lot lower if you're dealing with, you know, a perfectly flat lot that has no trees. Your excavation cost could go down a lot. Some of that was for the trenches for my septic system going up to the sand mound, and also the trench for my electric. The other big cost that came up at the end was that rainwater retention basin that I talked about outside. That alone took up about half of the excavation budget. So that will bring the total to around $134,000 to $180,000. So again, this is all going to be dependent on what you want to do specifically and what you're going to use the building for. If you're not going to have living space inside and you're dealing with a perfectly flat lot, you know, you don't need a lot of the things I mentioned. You can be a lot less than what I have there. But if you want to be like me and live inside and you want to do some finished living space, then you're going to be more in the upper range of what I have there. So that will conclude my house and shop tour. Hopefully I answered a lot of your questions. It's still a work in progress, but I'm really happy with where it's at. If you do have any additional questions, just let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you. If you'd like to watch the full build of this house, I'll put a link to that somewhere in this area. That takes you the whole way through from when I bought the raw land to a completed house. So that's it for today, and thanks for watching.